Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Before we hop into the 5 missed opportunities in the Batman Arkham franchise, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. I appreciate you very much, as YouTube has been very odd lately with recommending my videos. Lots of back and forth. Some things are seen by a lot, some things are seen by no one. So I appreciate you being here as always. Let's hop into it, because the Arkham franchise is a very interesting one. It is one that is very much like certain other franchises in gaming: Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Final Fantasy. There's a lot of franchises like this, The Witcher, where people are still talking about these franchises years after they have released their most recent games, at the very least. Arkham is so fascinating because of that. But with everything that it does right, there are some mistakes and missed opportunities. Here are 5 missed opportunities in the Batman Arkham franchise.
Number 5.
The first one is mismarketing of certain games in this franchise. Now, hold on. I know that most of these games were marketed fairly well, and I wouldn't say that there was a lot of lying going on. However, when it came to 2 entries in particular, despite them being really fun, good games, Origins and Night, there were some marketing missteps with these 2 entries in the Arkham franchise. First off, when it came to Origins, the marketing push of this game was entirely around Christmas, the assassination contract out on Batman, him having to fight for his life on Christmas Eve, on this night that is supposed to be festive. It was supposed to be this sort of lively Christmas world where you're going up against different assassins, and the street crime takes a little bit more precedence in this game. That is the marketing that we got, with CGI trailers banking off of characters like Deathstroke and Black Mask. Characters like this with Black Mask set to helm the actual villain slate of this game. However, once it came out, there was a brief area of the game where you believe this to be the focus, and it slowly actually changed. Gamers would very quickly find that Joker was once again the primary antagonist of this game. Now, I personally love his incorporation in this game. Ironically, his incorporation in this and Night are my favorite in the franchise, but I still think it was a missed opportunity to market off of this being about characters that it really wasn't, that ended up kind of playing second fiddle. Deathstroke was a major offender here, where he was only relegated to being in the game for a very, very short amount of time before eventually being pushed out of the narrative. He would come back later on in Arkham Knight, but again would be very quickly worked out of the narrative in an unsatisfying boss battle that most people felt disappointed by. When it comes to Arkham Knight, obviously the biggest mismarketing tactic was the Arkham Knight himself, with the idea that this was an original character, an original Rocksteady character for a DC Batman video game. And while that was a partial truth, with even comments thrown around like, oh, the Arkham Knight is not Red Hood, if you look at this, a lot of these are political truths in the sense of something that a politician or a lawyer would say to not technically lie, but not have to give you any more information than they had to, because technically you were on to something. When we look at Arkham Knight, this was Jason Todd. It was the whole time, and Jason Todd is the Red Hood. There is even a intro section, a small DLC, it was a pre-order bonus, which you could actually get later on, where you played as the Red Hood, which took place after the events of Arkham Knight, where he actually became the Red Hood later on. So while this was not a complete lie or fabrication, it was definitely misleading and frustrating to a lot of fans of the franchise, leading to a feeling that the last 2 entries in this fizzled a little bit due to the mismarketing and mismanagement of the lead up to release.
Number 4. It's the 4th one.
4.
Next up, we have a lack of gadgets for characters who are not Batman. Now, this will be a very brief entry because it says it all, right? The thing that really sucks is with all the playable characters in this franchise, in Asylum being able to play as Joker, obviously in City you're able to play as a handful of people other than just Batman, including Robin, Nightwing, and Catwoman. In Origins there's Deathstroke playable. In Night there's Harley, Nightwing again, obviously, Catwoman, Robin, Red Hood, Azrael. There's a lot of characters here that are playable across these games. However, they at times feel like they don't matter that much. They are very fun in combat, and they always are fun in combat, but when it comes to their actual gadgetry, they don't have much going on. And you could say, now hold up, Jay, that makes complete sense. Batman is the guy coming into every situation prepared for something. He has a ton of gadgets. He has more than anyone else. Sure, but the problem is that when you have the Bat family then right next to him, people who trained under him for years, who went on to develop some of their own gadgetry and weapons, for them not to have nearly the same amount of arsenal at their disposal as Batman, and to essentially come off as worthless in many situations that Batman can handle just because they didn't take time to give them gadgets in the franchise, that's frustrating. That makes it feel like there's no real reason to play as a lot of these characters in certain challenge maps, and that is one of the main places you can play as them anyway, since they are very rarely playable in the Arkham stories, which led to a frustrating experience where we got to see how cool some of these characters were, but how little their playstyle compared to Batman himself.
Number three.
The next one is a lack of villains, and now, I don't mean overall villains. There's plenty of villains in this franchise, but villains that were teased over and over again. I even released a top 5 villains that were missing from this game, or missing characters from the Arkham series, which is on the channel, which you should check out. It's very fun. But one of the biggest offenders of this is Prometheus. Prometheus was teased multiple times. He was teased most notably in Asylum and Arkham City, actually, as well, with in Asylum there being a riddle, and also in Arkham City there being an Easter egg revolving around the character of Prometheus. So once it came down to including him in a later title, whether it would be in Origins, in the beginning of Batman's years, or in Night, in the end, he was nowhere to be found. It's even more frustrating when you find out that he was actually originally planned as a DLC add-on for Arkham Knight. There's a lot of information suggesting through data mining that he was going to be in the Season of Infamy, but he was cut from the game. He never actually ended up coming to the franchise because of this, even though he was alluded to over and over and over again. This character would have been very interesting, as Prometheus is actually an anti-Batman character, just like Arkham Knight is, but in his own way. Prometheus has an origin story that mirrors Batman's in the sense that his family was gunned down by police. His family were criminals, and they were gunned down by police, leading to his hatred of law enforcement. He's very skilled in both hand-to-hand combat and gadgetry and computer work, and he even has been known for interdimensional travel. This is a very fascinating character that would have really added to the roster of characters in the Arkham franchise, but sadly, no cigar. When it comes to no cigar at all, Scarface is one that people really point out. Scarface as a puppet has appeared so many times throughout these games. At the very least, just off the top of our heads, we can very, clearly think of Asylum. He's in one of the closing cutscenes. Joker's messing around with the puppet. He's found actually in the mansion. He's also found in Arkham City a couple of times. He's found in the steel mill. He's in the crib. He's found obviously in the display case in the museum, in Penguin's Museum. So there's a lot of places where Scarface is popping up throughout this franchise and referenced and sort of foreboded to, in terms of this is a scary villain. This is someone with really, really bad mental problems, the ventriloquist, but we never get to see him in the actual games, which really sucked because he is a fan favorite. He's a favorite of mine, and it would have been really cool to see what the Arkham universe did with characters like Scarface and Prometheus.
Number two, the numero dos.
The next one we have is the Alienation of the Bat Family, which on its own would not be that bad. The idea of Batman creating the Bat Family and then having issues getting along with them, issues working with them, and issues continuing his crime-fighting career in its later years with this Bat Family makes sense. It's something we see all the time in comics. It's something we see all the time in movies. Bruce Wayne is not very good at not alienating people close to him, whether it's for good or bad reasons. However, when it comes to the alienation of the Bat Family, the problem is that there is no lead up to it at all. There is no context to this alienation. There is no context in terms of what we experience in the story to things like sidelining Tim Drake in both City and Night. There is no context to his relationship with Barbara Gordon other than flashbacks and things thrown in with dialogue. We don't get to hang out with these characters as Batman very much at all to build up that relationship. So while we know that relationship is there, we know who these people are and we know what they stand for. In order to actually fully experience the Bat Family, if you're going to go all in on them, like something like Gotham Knights is doing, you have to sort of make them playable. You have to make them matter in the overall scope of the story. If you pull out many of the members of the Bat Family from certain stories that they're in Arkham, the franchise, other than Barbara Gordon in Arkham Knight, many of these Bat Family members are not actually necessary to the plot. One of the best ones in terms of development is Alfred, but it's only developed through things like Arkham Origins. And then it's very, very little development in terms of Arkham Asylum, City, or Knight. You just have to go off that development in Origins. I think we needed more stories like that with development and interpersonal connections between these characters that would make us care more when things in the story happen to them beyond just, hey, I know who Nightwing is, I read a comic, he's pretty cool. These characters often got sidelined, and if you were going to do that, the context to be there for them to be sidelined, such as in something like the DC animated universe, where you see this happen with Dick Grayson and he finally has enough and just gets angry at Batman, feels alienated and leaves. Those are stories that work because of context, because of lead up, because of interpersonal connections that we get to see develop over the course of a story, which is how storytelling obviously works. When you just throw those things in last minute or you just throw them in with no context, it can be very disappointing, which is what I believe the issue is with the Bat Family in the Arkham franchise.
Number 1!
Splat.
The final one is a bit controversial because I know this is how many gamers are able to play these games. This is all they have access to. But there were a lot of missteps with the Return to Arkham collection. Firstly, it would have been very, very doable to throw Batman Arkham Origins in this, and it never was. It was never ported up from last gen, despite being confirmed as canon multiple times by Rocksteady. It was never brought up to the current gen of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it has yet to be, maybe it will, brought up to the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series consoles of the modern day. This game was left to rot on older generations of hardware for really no reason at all. Aside from that, the fact that the Return to Arkham collection is just 2 games is enough of an issue, but you also have the fact that some of the graphical changes for these games were not exactly loved by fans. Sometimes there were areas of the game that felt just painted over, that didn't feel like they were painstakingly remastered, and also there were many character models that people believed actually looked better in the original releases of the games, especially if you look at the PC port of those games in terms of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, where it's running at a high definition already, higher than console for that generation could produce. You're able to see some of the differences between how the characters look, some redesigned choices, and even some changes in facial shape along with areas that maybe look a little different. For example, the Arkham Asylum, Arkham Island, is very, very different looking and darker compared to what it looked like in the original Arkham Asylum release, and that vibes with some people and it doesn't with others. But when it comes to a remaster of such iconic games, you really want to try not to alienate your fans by making issues with that remaster. It's also seen especially in the performance of the Arkham City, like Return to Arkham City, on the PlayStation 4 especially, when we see things like chugging out in the city when you're gliding around, and issues that should not be happening with a remastered game from about 10 years prior, but we're seeing them. When it came to the PlayStation Pro and the Xbox One X, these games did load and run better, but it is an issue with them being marketed as PS4 and Xbox One and almost needing that extra bump of the One X and the PS4 Pro to run very well. As well as that, we also don't get to see 60 FPS generally in any of these re-releases, these remasters, which was becoming a staple of gaming in a lot of ways at the time, and led many gamers to feel like the ports were lazy, that the remasters were sort of lazy and just a way to throw Batman on the console and make some more cash for very little work. It's frustrating to see as a mega fan of these franchises, of the Batman franchise and of the DC games, and I hope that someday we can maybe see another re-release of the 4 games with prettier graphics, with things cleaned up, and without any sort of corners cut in them, because the games certainly deserve better than that. Let me know in the comments what you think below. I am very interested to hear your thoughts. What are 5 missed opportunities you believe happened in the Batman Arkham franchise? Do you believe any of my entries are wrong? You disagree with me? I'm always interested to hear that, or maybe you have a different take. Be sure to check out everything in the links down below in the description, because I have a secondary channel, Degenerate Plays, where we play through a wide variety of games, including Batman games actually, with you. We talk to you in the comments, we answer some of your questions even during some of the videos, so we enjoy hanging out there and playing games. That is also where we stream games now, if we are not talking about a particular topic, so I look forward to seeing you there. We also have my wife's Etsy shop in the description down below, where purchases directly go to help benefit the channel and help us, which we appreciate very much. Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, they are all down there, and I hope to see you there. Be sure to check out the other videos on the channel, because like I said earlier, YouTube has been very odd with recommending this channel to people. The growth has been very slow and the views have been very all over the place, and while I don't do it just for that, I really do want you guys to see cool videos that I upload that I have fun with, because I make them so that you'll enjoy them, and because I love it. So I hope to see you there. Have a fantastic day, and as always everyone, stay shway.